All right. Well, coming back to the Brett Allan show again, willingly, I promise, is comedian Maz Jobrani. He's going to be here in Colorado, in Denver, particularly at Comedy Works, from the 27th all the way through to the 29th. You're doing a Sunday show at 4:45 p.m. in the afternoon. So you're knocking it out this time around, getting all the shows in. Thanks for your time, my friend. It's good to see you, and I'm excited to chat with you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, and thanks for reminding me. I've got that early show.
Yeah. Did
I,
you know
I
you were doing a 4:45 show on a Sunday? I'm just asking.
yeah, I don't. I forget why we did it so early. I've had now. I've started to do so. I used to not do the Sunday shows, but then some of the cities I was in, they were saying, if you do a Sunday show, a lot of times people come, like they'll bring their, teenagers, because throughout the weekends, a lot of times these clubs don't allow people that are
Yeah,
under 18
21
or
and
under.
up usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I usually say, oh, let's make the Sunday show like 15 or 16 and up. Because the truth is, I started watching Eddie Murphy when I was 10 years old. So,
Yeah.
and my kids now, and I'm sure all, kids all over the place are, they know all these words that we use. So it became a thing we started doing, and it worked. And then, and like you was just saying, sometimes I go, I agree to these really early shows, and it's kind of weird, but at the same time, people come in, and obviously it's a comedy club, so there's no windows, and so you forget that it's still early outside, and you have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, they come to the show, they see you, maybe an opener, a feature, and they're out by 7 o'clock. And, they still have the rest of the evening. It's downtown at Comedy Works, so it's at a great club. And it is a downstairs club with no windows and sort of, it's like a grotto vibe a little bit. So I say, why not? I mean, my 10-year-old, speaking of kids and knowing all the words, yeah, he definitely knows the words. I wouldn't bring a 10-year-old to a show necessarily, but he is fascinated with stand up. He thinks it's kind of interesting, like, some things he can watch, like maybe a little bit of Brian Regan or Kevin James, So he thinks it's interesting that people get on stage and tell jokes and then people laugh. Like it's kind of an intriguing thing for him.
Absolutely. No, I listen, man. I mean, kids are the biggest fans. My son now is 16, and he's sending me clips of different comedians that he's finding and watching, and I'm telling him, hey, I'm the only comedian that you're supposed to be watching.
I
Um,
know, like,
but no, but comedy's a great thing for teenagers. I think it's a great way. Like if the kids learn to have, if your kid learns to have a good sense of humor and has a good sense of humor, I think that makes them a better person. And again, that's why I've always been into letting kids at a certain age, because some of the language we use is a little more adult, some of the content is a little more adult. But again, 13, 14, 15, they've seen a lot of it. And as you said, the Comedy Works is one of the best places. Every comedian will tell you it's one of their favorite clubs because of that low ceiling grotto kind of feeling. And so yeah, it's a great place to see comedy regardless.
the
It's funny
magic
because
room. Yeah, it's hot.
it is. It's funny. Last time I was there was when the Nuggets were in the finals against the was it the who was it who did they play the no, it wasn't the Celtics, it was the Heat. I think it was the Miami Heat.
Miami Heat.
And yeah, so during our shows, the teams were staying, the Heat was staying very close, and obviously the Nuggets live there. And a couple of the shows, a couple of the basketball players came, and it was funny because to your point, where I had my opening act, his name's Tehran. He does like 25 minutes or so, and then I do my hour. And I think it was the late show Friday or Saturday, whatever night it was. As I'm doing my show, towards the end of it, I see like these big, tall, I didn't know they were there. I just see these big, tall people leaving the show. And I was like, oh, did I offend them? What's going on? And I came off stage. I go, who was that? And they go, oh, that was the basketball team. They have a curfew, so they had to leave. I was like, oh, that's so funny to see these big dudes just leaving. I was like, I thought I'd offended a bunch of big dudes. I don't know why.
That is so funny. Yeah. I mean, Colorado is great for comedy. There's the Comedy Fort in Fort Collins. Even in Loveland, where I am at, there's a massive local comedy scene. It's just very hot for stand up, which I think is very cool. So now remind me, I think well, it's been a couple years. since I think Pandemic Warrior was when we spoke the last time, and then you had a project for Apple TV that you did that we spoke to you about, but obviously comedy is like your thing. Um, I would presume, a lot obviously has changed since the pandemic, and now people are back out doing clubs. I imagine it probably feels good now to just be able to go out and tour and just be yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, the pandemic, it feels like a blur. It feels like another time, another world. A lot of Zoom comedy,
Did you
drive.
do Zoom? Yeah,
I did
yeah.
Zoom comedy. I actually like Zoom comedy. I'll tell you why I like Zoom comedy because what the beauty of Zoom comedy was it was easy to do crowd work because what would happen is you'd be on a Zoom and if you had like let's say somebody on the Zoom who had a parrot on their shoulder, you'd see them in a frame and be like, "Hey dude, is that a parrot on your shoulder?" And then everybody could see the person and then you could riff on it and then you go to the next person, next person, next person and then at the end you just turn off your computer, walk into your house from the back garage. So it was actually kind of fun. Obviously, live shows are better. Like for me, look, I've been touring now for gosh, since like '04, '05. I've been doing stand up for 26 years and so I still love being on stage. I still love coming up with a new joke that does well. I still love doing an interaction with the audience that, does well. The traveling becomes a little tedious at a certain point because as you get older, you like your habits, you like your routines, and so then you're away for a few days, and then you fall off your diet, you fall off your, your exercise routine, all that stuff. So again, Zoom was good in that way. But now that we're back, the truth is, yeah, I mean, look, I love, like I said, I have like the Comedy Works films us, and I have all these clips from being there and just having so much fun in that room and on that stage. And I always just look forward to it, man. It's great. It's like, and the crazy thing is, we're doing 5 shows this weekend. So you get to do it, every time you have a show and it's done, if it goes great, you're like, oh, wow, you're a little nervous. You're like, well, the next show goes well. And the hope is that that next crowd is with you. And then the opposite is true as well. If you have a show and you go, oh, that didn't go well, you're like, okay, I got to bring it. I need my revenge on this show. So redemption, I should say. So yeah, I like doing it, man. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, you have the chance to do like you do big theaters and clubs. Do you have a preference between the two, or are you just happy to just go up whenever you get a chance?
Dude, any room with good acoustics is my friend. I love, because there's also the opposite. You might be in a room, whether it's a theater or a comedy club, and somehow the acoustics aren't right. And you'll do the whole show and you get off stage, you're like, oh my God, that did not go well at all. And then after the show, people are coming up going like, wow, I had a great time. And you go, I couldn't hear them. Somehow the acoustics weren't right. So like high ceilings aren't good for comedy. That's why the Denver Comedy Works is so great. Or if you have just, somehow the tech doesn't know what they're doing and you don't get that, like for me, again, Denver is one of my favorite cities. Washington D.C. The acoustics, the crowds are great. Stockholm, Sweden. I've like there's a theater there, and I'm going back to. I'm on tour in Europe in October, November. I had been playing a place called China Theater that had just electric acoustics, and now I'm going to this bigger venue, and I'm like fingers crossed that it still has good acoustics, and that the crowds in Stockholm were actually the reason why it was so good, not just the acoustics. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's one of the things I find fascinating about stand up is you watch there's like different a paradox. There's like the club or a brewery, and then like you have these comics that like Russell Peters comes to mind where you're playing stadiums and millions, thousands of people watching. Like it, the part that interests me is, it's all about connection with the crowd. I guess it's finding that nuance, right? To be able to play, you mentioned acoustics, to a stadium that's open where sound is bouncing off the walls. And then you have the opposite of like Comedy Works, where it's like a 150, 165 seat room. Like when you play different sized audiences, do you have to adjust your mentality of how you're performing to the room versus like a small club versus like a stadium or even a theater?
Well, you just said, an outdoor, the laughter actually just dissipates, right? But we did like this past year, I did the Abu Dhabi Comedy Week. It was at the Etihad Arena, and there was about 6,000 people. Now, what they've done there, the way you make that intimate is there's cameras on us, and they're projecting us on big screens. And so if I do crowd work and I say, "Hey, dude, what's going on?" then hopefully they have a camera that goes to that audience member and
Yeah.
brings them on the screen, and now it becomes intimate, right? So again, in a room like that, A, it's acoustics, B, it's the camera work to make it, because if we didn't have those screens and somebody had bought tickets all the way in the nosebleeds, they're not going to see a lot of our facial expressions and all that stuff. So that's really an important thing to do in those bigger venues. But nowadays, I mean, geez, you've seen, like you said, comedians are rock stars, and you see these guys, Kevin Hart doing 50,000 seat stadiums, or you got Gabriel Iglesias, some of these guys, he did Dodger Stadium. I mean, and I think people are excited. That's the other thing you got to remember. I was talking to a buddy of mine about this, about how, when people buy those tickets, they're your fans and they're excited, whether it's a small intimate club or it's a stadium. And I told them I went and saw Eddie Murphy in concert at the Oakland Coliseum in 1987, and I still have the ticket stubs from that. And I was just excited. Like for 45 minutes, I was just laughing, laughing, laughing. I couldn't stop because I was so excited to be there. And actually, after 45 minutes, I got tired of laughing. I had to take a break because my jaw was hurting. It's comedy is an interesting thing. Like music's very different. I think music, you can kind of be loud and obviously, good music's good music, but you can kind of drown out any kind of energy that you might either be getting or not getting from the audience. Comedy, you have to get that energy. So whether it's a small room or a big room, and that's why we hate corporate gigs. Because like again, a musician can come to a corporate gig and just play, 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 and every once in a while between songs go, "Come on, guys, you got to give a little more love," and then just do their thing, right? But for us, if we're not like whatchamacallit, those corporate gigs are, my wife's just walking in the house. Those corporate gigs are just a disaster because they're not giving you anything, Yeah, you come on in, babe. Um, yeah, I'm just doing a Zoom interview here. So yeah, that's why, like I said, comedy's very unique in that way. It's very much like, oh, he said hi. It's very much it needs the audience, and that's another reason why, like you were saying, during the pandemic, early on in the pandemic, I saw John Legend on an Instagram live, like playing music and just going for an hour or two. And I was like, he can do that. We can't, like, because you needed to hear an audience, So
Yeah.
that's it's a very collaborative thing, comedy.
Yes. Well, since we've spoken last in hundreds of interviews with amazing comics like yourself, I have taken the dive into stand up like 7 months in right now. And in fact, I have a show tonight. So I'm excited, like a contest at the Comedy Fort in Fort Collins. So I was like, this is perfect time. I get to talk to a great comic like yourself, get more juiced up. But yeah, I mean, right now it's mostly just open mics, features here and there, maybe a guest spot, showcases. But you have to have the audience. Like that's the thing. Like it reminds me, the Eagles just started their residency at the Sphere in Vegas, and they posted a video. And I think I can't think of his name now that fronts the band, but he's like, we're still trying to get used to this, whatever this is, like in front of all these people, all these screens going on, and and we want to connect with you, but we don't know how because, you have somebody all the way up here and then you have these screens going on. So I imagine with comedy, you can't really, it has to be a challenge to like connect with,
Well, also, by the way, listen, I think comedy is music again. And again, no, I'm not trying to cut down music at all. But I think again, a musician can be in their own world in terms of
right.
playing and just like in their thing and just doing their thing. Because a song is, takes 3, 4 minutes and they're just in the song. Comedians, your joke takes a punchline, it comes every 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds. And if you're not getting those laughs, then you feel it. And so that's where I think
Yes.
you have to really be present as a comedian, because if you're also in these moments where you're in an open mic and no one's laughing, there's comedy to making fun of that situation, being like, oh wow, this is really going, I'm happy I quit my job to do that,
Yeah, I'm
whatever it
glad I
is.
left work early tonight to come talk to you on a Monday night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, do you remember your first open mic at all? It's been a long time. Or did you start out that
Yeah,
way?
no, my
How did,
first open mic that I did was a place called Gallagher's in the Valley. Alex Borstein, who people might know from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, she was the manager
oh
of
yeah.
the main character, and she also is the voice of Lois on Family Guy. And she's done a ton of stuff. She's very talented. But she and I had been working at this same place together, and I had told her I put an act together, and she goes, "Oh, there's a place called Gallagher's in the Valley that you can do stand up." She goes, "I'm going to go do stand up. You want to come?" I said, "Sure." So I went with her, and I did it, and it was really just, it was a monologue. It was a bunch of characters I did, and the bartender, who I think was the owner or something, was like, "Yeah, that was good. You want give me your number. You come back." And then I took that act again, and I did one more at the Improv in Santa Monica. There was an Improv in Santa Monica at the time. And then after that, I stopped because I was finishing my last semester in college, and I was going to go get my PhD in political science and go be a professor. So rather than sticking to it, I just got diverted for a little bit. But I'd been doing plays and being on stage since I was much younger. And I'd always wanted to do stand up and be an actor, but my immigrant parents kind of were leading me in different directions. So that was the first time I did stand up an open mic. And then the next time after those two times, when I really kind of got serious with it, I took a stand up comedy class with Judy Carter. She had a class called, a book, she's written a book called The Comedy Bible. And I did that. And with that, we really started going to open mics. And that's when I really was like, because those first two that I did were kind of monologues. After this, I was going to open mics with other comedians, and paying, you pay like $5 to give you a coffee and 3 minutes on stage, and you're like, all right, here I go. And there were so many times where you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then there was moments,
Yes.
yeah, there's moments of hope where you get a little laugh, or you get a little, just a little nugget of something. You go, okay. And the key is to record every set. The key is to, if you have a friend that can come with you, that can help you analyze the set afterwards, and then work on that joke, and maybe fine tune it. And eventually, you start seeing improvement, and then after a while, you're like, oh, I can do this, and you
The
keep going,
delusion
man.
continues to build, and you're like, I think I can do this. It's
Yeah,
interesting. Such good thoughts and advice. Josh Wolf said too, when you're starting out, you have like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's hard to inject your personality into that, because that's what your personality now versus when you're on stage, pretty similar, maybe heightened a little bit. Um, you've got to get all that in there. So, um, that's very cool. And now here you are, you're touring the world.
yeah. And the way to get your personality. First of all, the only advice I give everybody: write as much as you can, get on stage as much as you can, right? But the way to get your personality in there is, so ideas come to you, thoughts come to you, bits come to you, things happen, and you write them down. You write them down. You write them down. Maybe you write a couple jokes for it, and then if you put yourself in a situation where you are either getting up really late, or you're getting up early, or you're getting up in front of a crowd that's not paying attention, those types of situations are great, because they take you out of your bits and they make you talk as you. So I remember one of the times when I kind of had a breakthrough. This guy was booking like a open mic night or something, and it was like five people. It was like him, his friend, me, and two people that were watching. And then a week later, we tried it again, and it was just the same. And I started to do my jokes that I'd done the first week, and I go, guys, you've already seen all my jokes. It was the same guys. I go, what am I doing? And then I started just riffing on ideas I had, and on stage, in person, and that was me not necessarily having punchlines, but saying like, I tell you, man, every time I try to pull the charger out of the car, it gets stuck, and then whatever it is, like whatever was on my mind that was bothering me, um, that your real voice comes out because you're like, these are the things that are on my mind. So that's how you find your real voice is putting yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, such good stuff. Well, I tell you what, I think people are excited that you're coming. This is so cool. I might make it down to the 4:45 because I don't have kids at that point. So that it works out for guys like me, single dads who are co-parenting and dropping kids off here and there. So thank you for doing a Sunday show at 4:45. I think that's very cool. Um,
Yeah.
so you've gone all this way. You've got the specials out. You do a little bit of television here and there. This tour that you're doing now, are these jokes that you've been doing for a while and are working into a new special, or does it change from night to night when you go
No,
up?
the thing that changes is when you do crowd work and that leads you in a different direction. But for the most part, I feel like, my act is a train that's going in a direction, and then every once in a while I get off the train, do some crowd work, get back on the train. And so this act, yes, I've been doing some of these jokes for, year and a half or so because I've been touring all over the world with it. I was in the Middle East. I will be going to Europe soon. I've done all over the U.S. I've been to Canada, and so you keep that act going until you put it out. And again, I hope to film it pretty soon, and then put it out, and then I hope to transition those jokes out and work on all the new stuff. And that's kind of how I constantly do it. I've now done, I think, 7 specials, and I just keep going. I got to keep writing, keep touring. That's what I do until somebody calls and says we want to put you on a show or something. So for the time being, that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, congratulations and just such good advice and thoughts. And it's always cool to talk to you. Like I told you the first time, I've always been a fan and um, each time, getting to talk to you and get to know you a little bit more is really cool. So you've got the Apple TV show, of course, you've got your specials, you're touring, you're going to New Jersey after this, and then San Jose, you're going to be at the Improv there, and then you're going to start making your way back international touring, right? That's the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's what we got going on till the end of the year. I'm actually going to be in Europe during the elections, so depending on how things turn out, I may have to tell my wife to get the kids on a plane and come find me. So we'll see what happens, man.
Be like,
Uh,
hey, I need you to come here now.
yeah, yeah, I'm not
Well,
coming
I'm
back. Yeah, you crazy?
we're gonna book you tickets, you handle the money and put
Yeah,
the house, we'll rent the house out, we'll Verbo it or Airbnb it so people
let's
can.
go. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Maz. I appreciate your time. Excited that you're coming to Denver. People are excited, and yeah, it should be a fun run of shows. And thanks again. So you're not no TV coming up anytime soon, right? You're pretty much just
No, no TV. Just like I said, like you were, first of all, I got that special on YouTube now. It's called The Birds and the Bees, so people can check that out. It's free on YouTube. My Netflix special, Immigrant, is still out there. And then, other than that, I'm just touring and I'll be filming this next special, maybe even in San Jose, and I'll be putting that out soon. And that's it. Just I'm on socials posting crowd work all the time, at Maz Jobrani across the board. But no actual TV stuff coming up because who's watching TV anymore?
I know
It's
TikTok is I
yeah,
can watch an entire movie on TikTok.
I'm telling you,
Uh
man.
yeah, it's great. Like the show that you did for Apple, like I don't know, recently I started getting served clips of that and I was
Wow,
like, yeah, it's interesting. You can watch a whole movie or that on Instagram Reels,
that's
So
it, man. That's where people are, so that's where I am.
yeah. Well, Maz, thank you so much for your time as always. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
And
Brad.
we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.